Good morning, students. As we have completed the syllabus, we started revising our syllabus. And in the fundamental unit of life, we have discussed until how organelles are going to help in maintaining cellular functions, etc. in the last class. Now, let us discuss the organization of the cell. That is, what is a cell made up of? Every living cell, here we are discussing mostly about eukaryotic cell, not about prokaryotic cell much. So, that every living cell, it is made up of three components: plasma membrane, nucleus, and cytoplasm. Plasma membrane is also called cell membrane since it covers the cell, and inside the cell whatever the liquid that is present, it is called plasma. As it covers the plasma, it is called plasma membrane, and the entire cell, it is covered by this membrane, it is called cell membrane. And this is the outermost covering membrane of the cell, outermost covering of the cell. In the case of plant cells, fungal cells, bacterial cells, cell membrane or plasma membrane is not the outermost covering of the cell. Their cell wall is the outermost covering of the cell. And plasma membrane separates the cellular contents from the external environment. So inside the cell there are so many cellular contents. These cellular contents are separated from the external environment by the plasma membrane. Plasma membrane, it permits the movement of some materials. It permits the movement of some materials. Movement means entering inside the cell and exiting from the cell. So exit and entry of some materials across the plasma membrane occurs. Here it is written only some materials, underlined. Means only some materials are able to move inside the cell or from the cell to its outside. As plasma membrane permits the movement of only some materials, it is called selectively permeable membrane. Why plasma membrane is called selectively permeable membrane? Because plasma membrane permits the movement of only some materials across it. It is called selectively permeable membrane. And generally, the movement of materials across the plasma membrane, it occurs in different fashions. Movement of materials across the plasma membrane occurs spontaneously in the case of the materials like gases like carbon dioxide and oxygen, and water and some other molecules. Spontaneously means they move on their own. They don't use any energy. Such movement, the movement of the material on its own without using any energy, is called spontaneous movement. If you put a ball on the top of a hill at the slopey area, without your push, the ball will fall down directly on its own. That is what called spontaneous movement. From the bottom of the hill, if you want to just make the ball to move up, you need to just hit it very hard or throw it very hard to the top. Whereas when you are just putting the ball on the top of the hill, you no need to just use any hard energy. It will move on its own. That is called spontaneous movement. So movement of materials across the plasma membrane occurs spontaneously in the case of the molecules like gases like carbon dioxide and oxygen, and water and some other molecules. Such movement, such spontaneous movement of substances from the region of their higher concentration to the region of their lower concentration across the cell membrane is known as diffusion. The spontaneous movement of substances from the region of their higher concentration to the region of their lower concentration across the cell membrane is known as diffusion. So when will this spontaneous movement occurs by these molecules across the membrane? If on both sides of the plasma membrane, same concentration of a particular molecule is there, then the net movement from this side to other side will be 0. If at one side there is higher concentration of a molecule and other side there is lower concentration of molecule, then movement of such molecule from its higher concentration region to its lower concentration region takes place. This type of movement is known as diffusion. For example, respiratory gases move in and out. When oxygen is taken from the environment, through blood it moves to the cells. So in the blood there is higher concentration of oxygen, whereas inside the cell there is lower concentration of oxygen. So from blood into the cells, by diffusion method, oxygen moves in. As already cellular respiration is over, inside the cells there is a buildup of carbon dioxide. So there is higher concentration of carbon dioxide inside the cells than compared to the blood. So the carbon dioxide will be diffusing out from the cells into the blood. Likewise, respiratory gases move across the cell membrane by means of diffusion. And water also moves across the cell membrane by diffusion only. Water also moves across the membrane by diffusion only. Means water moves from the region of its higher concentration to the region of its lower concentration by through cell membrane spontaneously. This is known as diffusion of water. And diffusion of water is being termed with a specific term, that is osmosis. Movement of water molecules through the selectively permeable membrane by diffusion is known as osmosis. And osmosis is affected by the amount of dissolved substance in water. See, water, it solubilizes many materials in it, right? So many substances are dissolved in water. So based on the amount of dissolved substance in the water, the osmosis is going to result in. Okay. When more amount of substances are dissolved in water, then the concentration of free water reduces. Concentration of free water reduces. Such water cannot move from one place to other place. So if water has to move from one place to other place, it must be dilute enough. It should not be concentrated. If water is concentrated, it attracts more water into it. If water is diluted, it moves from one area to other area easily, such that the osmosis is affected by the amount of dissolved substance in the water. As we have just discussed that the amount of dissolved substance affects the osmosis, osmosis can be defined like this. Osmosis is the passage of water from a region of high water concentration to a region of low water concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. Depending on the concentration of water present in the medium that is surrounding the cell in comparison with the concentration of water inside the cell. See here, the concentration of water in the surrounding medium of a cell and the concentration of water inside the cell, both are compared. What is that? The concentration of water in the surrounding medium of the cell and the concentration of water inside the cell. When these two concentrations are compared, the solutions are defined in three ways. Okay, depending on the concentration of water present in the medium surrounding in the cell in comparison to the concentration of water inside the cell, the solutions are of three types. They are hypotonic solution, isotonic solution, and hypertonic solution. What is hypotonic solution? If the medium surrounding the cell has higher water concentration than inside the cell, then the solution is called hypotonic solution. So if the medium surrounding the cell has higher water concentration than inside the cell. So inside the cell there is lower water concentration, and outside the cell in the surrounding medium there is higher water concentration. Then the medium surrounding the cell is said to be hypotonic solution. So here water is higher concentration, that means dilute. So the surrounding medium is more dilute than inside the cell. So it is called hypotonic solution. If a cell is placed in a hypotonic solution, the cell is likely to swell up, because I already told concentrated water attracts more water. So inside the cell there is concentrated water or lower concentration of free water, so that the cell gains water. As the cell gains water, cell will likely to swell up or swollen up. Next, isotonic solution. If the medium surrounding the cell has exactly the same water concentration, then the solution is called isotonic solution. So if the medium surrounding the cell has exactly the same water concentration with inside the cell, then the solution is called isotonic solution. So living cell will stay the same size when it is placed in isotonic solution, because it is having equal water concentration. So the net movement of water will be zero from inside to outside. So the cell neither gains water nor loses water. Next, hypertonic solution. If the medium surrounding the cell has a lower water concentration than inside the cell, then such a solution is called hypertonic solution. So inside the cell now water concentration, free water concentration is more, and outside the cell there is lower free water concentration. So the outside the cell, the surrounding medium is in which solution type? Hypertonic solution type. So here we have discussed about the solution of the surrounding medium of the cell, right? And when a living cell is placed in hypertonic solution, okay, it will shrink because it loses the water from the cell. The water will be lost from the cell to the surrounding medium. So the cell will likely to get shrink. Okay, this is what the hypertonic solution.